Hi everybody, Russ from My Hammers 11. Hope you're safe and well. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, hitting that bell icon, and be made aware of any time I put new content on. We'll keep you going during this weird off season where we've had no football, then we had a mad rush of 90 odd games, and now we've got nothing until mid-September. But it doesn't matter. My Hammers 11 is still going on. Loads of great guests, including today's guest. She is, well, to date, the longest serving West Ham woman player in history. 350 odd appearances, England international. It's Claire Lacey. Hi, Claire. How are you? Little introduction.
All right, thank you.
Nice little introduction.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I don't want to be boastful and say I'm an England international and I've had all these caps, like so many. I mean, it was it was brilliant. It was one cap away in Portugal, and a couple of seasons, couple of years with the England setup, and that was fantastic. So that's just a little bit of a nice memorabilia.
There's not many people who even played one game, Claire. So it's like, you know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't. I just find that absolutely awesome that we've got another international, albeit one. Doesn't matter. I don't care. You crossed that line in an England shirt, innit? Same as a lot of people who don't play very often for West Ham. They've worn a West Ham shirt, and they'll always be members of West Ham shirt, and you'll always be an England international. How are you? How's this weird world we live in now for you?
Yeah, it's really strange at the moment, but I'm working from home at the moment, so I'm fortunate enough to do that, and that's great because I'm safe. There's many people that are clearly out there on the front line, and that's tough at the moment, and things are getting better, but then things are still tough and slow moving at the minute with progress of everything coming back to normality. But I'm okay. I'm well, thank goodness. Family's well, so that's good. It's been crazy because there's been so many games, and we've missed it, and we've watched loads, and then all of a sudden there's no games, although I've switched the one off tonight for the Championship.
Still 0-0. Still 0-0. By the way, we're watching this in the Championship. It's absolutely crap scheduling by me, but it doesn't matter. And it's 0-0. So I'm going to keep Claire up to date, so she doesn't worry. But it's and that could make, and that game, actually thinking about it, could make a big difference in terms of what our transfer policy for this year, because obviously we want to nick the couple of Brentford boys, and so we'll see what happens. But you're right. As long as everyone's got their health and everyone's safe and well, as you said, things. And as you said, with so much football, it was just mental. And isn't it like the Champions League soon? It's like next weekend. It's just like, I just find this whole thing bizarre. It's like, I remember like during that sort of weird where you had like 3 or 4 games, you'd look at you'd finish work and you're like, oh crap, we've got a 6 o'clock kickoff. It's like, it was so weird. I just couldn't get my head around it.
Yeah.
And I just imagine, I think, we'll see what happens. Come sort of September, but I think that'll be the same for at least a few weeks. There'll be that before they. I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen?
What's going to happen if we can go? And me and my family go, and there's a row of sort of 7 of us, and it's like, are they going to let us all go together because we're in our bubble?
You would think so, wouldn't you? You would think so, because I don't know how they're going to do it. It's the same as like, theatres and things like that. I don't know, because you think you can't do one spot and then 2 meters and that, because as you said, for you lot,
and the row in front as well. Exactly. Right there.
I did try and figure out the other day when we was there for the. No, it wasn't the Villa game. It was the Watford game. We had a bit of spare time, so we tried sort of pacing it out. And you can obviously London Stadium's quite good to social distance because it's quite a big stadium. Doing it the old girl, you wouldn't have had a chance because it's like trying to get that district line or whatever. But I'll wait and see. No one really knows what's going on. No one's going on with the country rather. The rates getting up a little bit.
We've bought our tickets, so we're hoping that we might get to see 1 or 2 games, or if it's every other, then great. But we'll see.
We'll see what happens. It's a weird time we live in, but at least we're in the Premier League next year.
I know.
That's it. At the end of the day, that's like the massive relief. And typical West Ham. You've been a fan for 30 odd years. Typical West Ham. We hit our best vein of form just as the season finishes.
I know.
Right. Okay. Brilliant. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, Antonio, an absolute strike force, and
exactly, one-man strike force. Incredible.
Oh, yeah, unbelievable. He's been a bit of a saviour.
He has, and it's just the whole thing has just been. I think we've worked. Obviously, I think I haven't. I'm surprised no one's done the stats yet. They might have even in terms of the restart stats. So because it'd be interesting because you have like someone like Sheffield United were like caning it.
Oh yeah.
And then they just nosedived, and we've sort of done the opposite. I mean, we were pretty comfortable against Man United away, and obviously Chelsea game, and we turned Watford over really, and I mean Villa we had like our feet up really. It seemed
I know.
But I mean, it was going to happen, but
I know.
Yeah, and
still
hopefully
prefer to be mid-table finishing than always at the bottom, and
I know, and I'm the same. And I remember people criticising the Allardyce years when we were like 12th. Yeah. And they were like, so boring, it's boring football. And it's like, well, actually, to be honest, we could do with a couple of seasons of them, just get 11th, 12th, safe by February. That's okay with me, and then maybe go for a cup run. But, that's what everyone wants. But,
I know.
I could do with a couple of those, sort of just building a foundation, because it seems there's so much change.
Top of the table would be lovely.
But we ain't going to happen. If we know, I'm an eternal optimist, and so end of the season, I was like, right, that's it. Next season is our season, and I'm like really buzzing for next season. Give them 3 games. I know they're going to take my optimism away, and then it's going to. But we know that's happening.
We may be shocked.
Exactly.
I'm like you. I'm an optimist, and I see the good in us all the time. And I think, one day that we're going to be a team to be reckoned with, and we'll be up there in the top 6. And I thought that when we had an influx of all the players, with your Anderson and Ella and all these players coming, 100 million spent, and you think, we're going to be something now, and all the other teams are looking at us going, oh my god, look at their players are getting in, and then we're a flop,
it's a bit like buying the way I see it, it's a bit like buying like a really expensive house, but it's on really dodgy ground, some really dodgy foundations. So you spend all the money, beautiful, it looks fantastic, you've got all this beautiful, but then when it comes to actually the foundations, when you get down to the basement, you realise it's a bit crumbly. And that's the trouble. And I think at least now, that's what I quite like. That's why I'm really sort of quite happy with Moyes, because I think he's a guy who basically makes sure those foundations are secure, and then maybe in the 18 months, then we do the big get them all in, and But for me, I think there's lots of. I mean, there was lots of pluses. Obviously, someone like you can see when he's buying people like Bowen and Souček and people like that. That's who we should be going out for, and making a profit.
Love those players. They've been fantastic, haven't they?
Oh, been awesome.
Since they've started. Exactly. Bowen, Souček, both of them have been fantastic. So well happy with those.
Yeah, and that's a blueprint. Buy these like hungry championship-based players, or players in leagues which aren't the Bundesliga or Serie A, where we've had our feet slightly burdened because they're infatuated prices, and you make a profit. And unfortunately, I think for a little while we might see a bit of a conveyor belt, because I think you've got to build up the cash. You got to, and someone like Souček, we can sell Souček tomorrow and it'll double our money.
Of course,
which is very unusual for West Ham to buy a player and make a profit on him. But Claire, we see you got the shirt. We know you play for the club. The first question I ask everyone, although we're 10 minutes in, but fuck it, don't care, is why West Ham? Why is West Ham your club? What's your story?
Oh God, here we go. Right. So, it's in the family. I've been brought up to support West Ham since a very young age. I've got 2 older brothers, that are, quite a bit older than me, and they both support West Ham. They did used to both go, but now only one of them goes, and he's just a fanatic, and he knows the ins and outs of the club history and everything. So, he's an absolute West Ham fanatic, and he taught me everything I've known, and they both did. I mean, when I was little, I was that kid that was stuck in between the trees and that was it, or jumpers for goalposts, and it was like getting goal and them and their mates smashed the ball at me, and then I became an England international goalkeeper. So it didn't turn out too bad. So I probably have them to thank for that. But yeah, so that was how it started. I think my brother took me when I was about 9 or 10 to my first game at Upton Park, and it was fantastic. I wasn't supposed to go. My mum specifically said to him, like, Darren, don't take her. She's not allowed yet. She's too young. Blah blah blah. Anyway, so I'm on my bike and dropped my bike off round to his girlfriend's, and then I went and we won 2-1, and I came out, and on the way home he was like, oh, you can't say anything, and all that. So I was only 9, so I got home and I was so excited from winning. It came out, and then he got told off, and then that was it. And after that, she said, as long as you take care of her, then it's fine. So that's how it started. And then from then on, it was just going with my brother until I sort of hit secondary school. And then me and the group of girls, there's like sort of 4 or 5 of us that would go, and it would be again in the North Bank, and all where it was all standing, and just little things that you remember when it was the peanut man used to come round.
That comes up all the time, the peanut man. It's just it's such a memory for most people.
Peanut man, and then you'd go up and you'd look up in the corner and there'd be the refreshments bit, and you'd struggle to get through, and then get a little cup of OXO, and then struggle to get back to wherever my brother was. So little things like that were fantastic at Upton Park. So many good memories. And then that was it. And then I started playing as a teenager for West Ham, and then I, that was it. I was concentrating on football. I was still a season ticket holder, but as we developed West Ham Ladies back then, it was set up by the twins, Roger Morgan and Ian Morgan, his brother, and as we developed, and we got better and better, and we had sort of 4 or 5 promotions up the pyramid, and then we started to have to play, sort of up at, Southern National at that point. So it could be anywhere, southern part of England or over to sort of Cardiff, Portsmouth, wherever. So we were, and then cup games as well, sort of travelling up north. So a few FA Cup runs that we'd gone on. So I didn't have the time to sort of go West Ham on every match day, but I tried to get to as many as I could through that time. But it was hard playing myself, and then getting to the games, and sort of travelling on a Saturday up to wherever we had to be, and then Sunderland sometimes, and then you play, and then travel back, and wouldn't get home till like 1 or 2 in the morning on Monday morning, and then have to work.
Yeah, that's the trouble. So, filling it with work as well, isn't it? I mean, that's and it must, but it must have been like, must have been a childhood dream for you. Obviously, going from from the age of 9, and then turning out and playing for your team. It must be like there's not there's not a lot of people that do that. You know what I mean? No. And so, and obviously for so long as well, it's not just like, as you said, not like just like 1 or 2, 350 odd appearances. That's it must have been very special being a fan and playing for the club.
It was. It still is. I mean, I could tell you loads of stories of clubs coming in to want me to play for them. When we sort of worked our way up the pyramid. And we had the likes of Chelsea. And if you remember when Al Fayed, Harrods owner, put money into the women's game, and Fulham became the first professional women's team. I don't know if you knew that, but they, back in the day, they did. And Marianne Spacey, England player, she took over management, and she'd approached me and asked me to play for Fulham. And that was, as a professional, first team to be paid to play. And I didn't go. I had the likes of Vic Akers from Arsenal. When he managed Arsenal a couple of times, he came in and one day I turned up at home when I was still living at my parents, and he was there chatting to me mum and dad, and I'd walked in. I was like, okay, I didn't expect that, but
No.
that was So I I must have been some kind of decent player for that to happen, and but I feel proud that I stayed at West Ham, and maybe there's two sides. Maybe you could say there's regrets, but I don't regret being loyal.
No.
I know that much because I could have left. I could have gone to Chelsea or Fulham or Arsenal, and I probably could have developed myself within the England setup sooner and better. But I didn't. I didn't want to leave West Ham, and I wanted, I felt that I set out on a journey when I was a young teenager, and I wanted to progress and get West Ham women, West Ham ladies at the time, up into the top levels. And it took us sort of 10 years. So every other year we got promotion, and we started out in Division 3, and it was Division 2, 1, Premier, Southern National, and then the and then we were a team to be recognised, and I just wish that I was born later. That's probably the thing. And the others did as well. But I wish that I'd been born later and finished my career at West Ham, which I didn't. But I would have loved that. But 13 years, 13 years is a long time to give to a club. Definitely. And as I say, I don't think there's anybody else in the women's team that has done that, as far as I'm aware. But also, like, looking at Phil Parkes, Ludo, and all of those. Phil Parkes is something like 344 games. So I'm thinking, actually, I could well be the goalkeeper that's got the most appearances. But
quite possibly.
Maybe back in the day, maybe in the early 1900s, there's someone else.
I'm sure someone will. I'm sure someone will come up with a. We'll find it out and make
someone
a
will
comment.
Correct me on this, won't they?
Or the other way, or they'll say, yeah, Claire is, but quite possibly, I could definitely see that. But you're right. I can understand. You got it was sort of two sides. There's the professional side, and then there's the fan side. And obviously, for the fan side, you're right. Staying at the club, professional side, to the detriment maybe of not moving on. But as you said, you had the fan, and it's like heart and mind, isn't it? And it's like and definitely the heart won. And I think and that's, I think, to be honest, that's why someone like parallels, someone like Mark Noble, he could have gone a couple of times, I think, in transfer windows and stuff. I think even Fulham was one of the clubs he was going to go to potentially, but he didn't, and it could have been to his detriment. He never got into the England side and stuff like that, and it's a quality that has disappeared from the game entirely. I think that sort of loyalty to your team, and it's a shame, because I think we fans definitely are not as connected with players as they were back in the day. So back in the Phil Parkes stage, you know what I mean? It's like a player staying for 10 years and getting a testimonial, he was the norm, kinda. In that era, obviously Alvin did double testimonial, Billy did double. Where now someone like Mark Noble is like a real rarity, having 10 years at the club, 500 appearances. I
love him for that.
Exactly.
That's whatever.
And it's the same as you having a fan play for your club. That's why West Ham fans probably give him more stick, because he's a fan than he deserves. But that's why they love him more than anyone else, because he's a fan, and everyone can relate. Everyone wants to be in that position. I'm 20 odd stone. I'm not going to be in that position, but I would love to be Mark. Because I'd love to leave my side out. Now I hope it would happen with Declan Rice.
He's on my list, but he's not. But he's in the he's in that bracket. But I mean, I don't want to beg on here, but if Declan's ever going to watch this, he just, I would love to see, and so would many thousands of fans, love to see him stay at West Ham and become the captain, and then do what Mark Noble's done. You know, I know it's difficult for him, but he's in the thing is he's in the England setup already.
Exactly.
You know, no need to go anywhere. He's already recognised. You know, Gareth Southgate knows what he can do, and why make the move? You know, that's what, again, it's head, heart, and it's money and loyalty to me. So what you know, whatever he chooses to do, I wish him well. But you know, and I'll always be a fan of him. You know, but yeah, I'd love him to stay at West Ham and carry on. You know, he's just unbelievable. I think he's unbelievable, really.
I think I totally agree, and I think he is one of those players who, if he goes to Chelsea, if he went to Chelsea, he would just be another player. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where at West Ham, he would be a god, you know, an idol. We do look up to him because of, we know he could go into Chelsea's team. We know he could walk into Man United's team, but staying there, being something different. I'd love him to be something different. I'd love him to be not going to a Chelsea. I'd love him to just stay there, be the man, be a big fish in a small pond, rather than sort of the other way around. But anyway, let's go on to the 11. Let's go on to the 11, because I don't want any more spoilers going in. Now, obviously, the only real parameter is you have to be alive to have seen them play. But apart from that, you can do whatever you want, Claire, to be honest. And I know there's been some anxious decisions, you know, sweating over these, you know.
It's unreal, honestly. I've had to do a list over the last 2 days and put them in their categories. So I made some notes that I can just have a gaze at, because honestly, in every category, like keeper and then central defenders, and and there's a number of them, especially the keepers and the centre halves and midfielders. The other areas, they're, you know, a little bit easier, but hard. It was hard. But there's reasons behind it, because, as I said, you know, I've been going since I was 9. So if you think, so as a 9-year-old, we're talking like mid-80s now, right? So I'm going to capture some of the players that played, you know, the final sort of 5 years, say, of the 80s, throughout the 90s, and then to date, you know. So it's like. I'm going to say some names that are going to be, it's how I feel, and when I've been to Upton, from the days I was going to Upton Park and watching those players. So it brings back memories from when I'd gone with my brothers, I'd gone with my school friends, to then when I started work and I met, you know, new friends, and I started to go with them, and then went with a few people from West Ham ladies at the time, and a few of us had our season tickets together, you know, and then now family. I mean, I bought my dad a season ticket. The last 3 seasons at Upton Park, I bought it for him as the first season as a gift, and then that's it. He loved it, and he just carried on going with me, you know. So but okay, go for it.
And you're right, and it is, and you're right. It's a generational thing. You know, you've got these different sort of periods in your life. What I find interesting when people do this is, and we'll probably see it as it comes through, but I have a theory in terms of the era that people pick their players on based on their age. You know, I'm gonna write like a rough era down that I think that you're gonna be doing. So you were 9 when you started going. So I reckon your team's gonna be around.
So old.
So I reckon your team's gonna be around. Yeah, I reckon the average.
But there are a couple of different ones in there.
I know, but I've got a feeling. I've got a feeling.
Yeah,
anyway, we'll talk about it.
I've been fortunate enough to see people over the latter part of the 80s decade, 90s, you know, noughties, and now. So you know, it's good. So there's a big range.
You've got a nice spread. Right, let's go. Let's start with probably the hardest one for you. Let's start with the keeper.
Oh God, it's so honestly. So really, right. So really quickly, I mean, in almost date order, really. But there's Phil Parkes, there's Ludo to choose from. There was Shaka Hislop in my mind. There's Dave James, Rob Green, Jaskalainen, Adrian, obviously, and Fabianski. Through my era, the ones that
You
stood.
forgot Roberto.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that list off the list?
Oh,
You didn't scroll down to the bottom. Anyway, sorry,
he's misunderstood. He is.
Well, he's apparently Atletico Madrid's number 2. So they're going to buy him to replace Oblak.
I know, but yeah,
Anyway.
look, there's certain cogs, isn't there, and they don't fit in. If they don't fit in, that's how it is, you know.
Yeah.
And it weren't his time, no. But so I really struggled, and I've seen changes, and for me, being a keeper over however many years, you know the old style keepers that they were good with their hands. They were shot stoppers. They weren't athletic. They weren't agile in certain ways. You know, they weren't the fitness fanatics. So things have changed over the years.
Yeah.
So you've got in those eras from when then things started to change, probably in the 2000 onwards, where the keepers became more athletic, more agile. You know, there was all SAQ work done, and it was all, Dave James. You know, he's a fine specimen of a goalkeeper. You know, very athletic, very agile for a tall man. You know, good shot stopper. But with him, for me, he would have been up there in the top 3. But for me, it's the decision making with him. So, so that's why that sort of knocked down a bit. So I wheedled it down to Phil Parkes and Ludek McCloskey.
Yeah.
And the reason being is that Phil Parkes, I saw him in his latter stages, like he finished in 1990. Yeah. So I saw him in the last stages of his career, and I've met him a couple of times in a supporters club, and he's a lovely gent. And he's had the most appearances so far for a West Ham keeper that I know of in my time. Yeah. He's had his 1 England cap, same as me. So, and as much as I love Ludo and some of the others for other reasons, I think that it had to be Phil Parkes for me.
Yeah. I think there's been a lot of deliberation about that, but I think you've made a good. There's a lot of parallels, isn't there, with him and you in terms of your thinking about it. It's weird, about roughly almost exactly the same appearances, slightly more for you, I think.
I know.
And 1 England cap
as well. He was, yeah. So
and you both had mullets. No, you didn't. Joking.
No, I didn't. I had some big hair. I had some big Diana Ross hair when I was younger.
Brilliant. Awesome, but and he's going to be 70 soon, Phil Parkes.
I know, it's unreal, isn't it? I mean,
when you
say legend, it makes people sound old, and I know he won't mind me saying, but I know he is old, now. But I mean, in the day, all those appearances and what he did at West Ham, he deserves some legendary credit. He's fantastic. Yeah.
Definitely. Okay.
Yeah.
We doing a 4-4-2 or
I've done that because I could have done so many different and just tried to get people in where I wanted.
Right, let's go left back. Left back.
So left back, I wrote a few names down. So I wrote down, and I did see him in his latter stages, which was Ray Stewart. So so Tonka, obviously penalty taker as well. Saw a few of them. In the time at Upton Park as well. He was great. Obviously Stuart Pearce. I know that I know a couple of people. Shaka mentioned him, didn't he? He liked him. Obviously Stuart Pearce, heart on sleeve and gives everything. But the one for me was Julian Dix, really. So he just, the time, the era that he was there, who he played with and around, and the other players, it's pretty much our left back. I would say.
I mean that one, and that's and Julian's a really interesting character because he's the one which, although we have people who pick generational, a lot of people maybe stick to the 80s or whatever. Julian Dix, doesn't matter who we interview, he appears in almost every 11. He just spans. I've even interviewed people like Mark Ward, who basically put his whole team down as the '86 team, apart from left back, and put Julian Dix in. You know what I mean? So it's like, and he knew, and he just said if we had Julian Dix, we would have won the league by. It's not if we, but how many points we would have won that league in '85. Is it? And you just get that, and obviously it'd be nice, it'd be lovely. It's lovely that him and Slaven will be obviously back there next year. With West Brom, maybe Scott Parker. It's 0-0, 88 minutes, so it's going extra time probably. It's weird, isn't it? Because it's like that championship. We've obviously been through a couple of them. Those playoffs, and they're fantastically nervous. It's a brilliant. But can you imagine what it's like now if you're a Brentford fan or a Fulham fan? You're not there. It's just so weird.
Oh God, yeah, I know.
This game is £170 million game, they reckon, and it's like you're at home. You just finished your curry. You know what I mean? Like, you've probably because you've gone to you've done your 50% off at the Nando's or whatever, to help the restaurant out. But you've come back and you've it's just bizarre anyway, very strange. Right, I put Julian in. Good shout. Okay, let's go the other fullback. Let's go right fullback, other side.
Yep. So few again, and I know you had Seb Schemmel.
Yeah, he's in my team. Look, he's in my team. I've got my thing. He's in my team. Sebastian Schemmel.
Yeah, I do. I did like him. I did. And I know we only had him for a couple of years, and he was good. But in my time, and me remembering being up the, which was the Bobby Moore when it was, when it was the South Bank and that. So I'd started in the North Bank. We were brothers, and when I then changed my, friends and whatever, and I went down the other end, I remember two people that stood out for me, and one was Timmy Breaker, right, and then there was another one which was Stevie Potts. Now I know he could play centre half, and he was pretty much a utility across the back, Stevie Potts, and I've been fortunate enough to meet him as well. He sort of came to one of our football presentations, and there was the guest there. Brilliant, another one with so many appearances, and like over a span of like 17 years, from 85 to 2002, and you just think like another player that kept himself fit and trained well, played well,
totally,
so but Timmy Breaker as well, I loved him as a right back, and he was like a train once he got going, and he'd overlap and get the crosses in and whatever. But I suppose that was in my sort of school days era. But I think Steve Potts was the one for me that stuck out. So
Steve Potts, he won't come on the channel. He doesn't like doing these things. So I'm putting a plea out to Steve Potts. If you're watching this, because apparently you do watch them, Steve, I want you on the channel. Have a word. We'll get you on, honestly. But I know what you mean about Pottsy. I am such a fan of Steve Potts. I always have been. I talk about the story that me and my best mate set up a fan club, Steve Potts Appreciation Society, and it's only me and him, bless him. No, I love him. Honestly, I think he's a beautiful man, and he's lovely. And I love the fact that he's still at the club. With the under 23s, and there's not much more, he
doesn't change as well. He never changes, does he? He's just
that's a gem. All right, let's go centre offs. So we're gonna have centre off.
Right. God, this is another one. I had 5, and I picked my 2, and I appreciate other people have said about Ian Pearce. Great, 142 appearances. Good. James Collins. I mean, another one. Another good shout. Another solid defender. Gave 880 odd appearances. Rio. Alvin Martin, and Slav was the other ones. Now, the only reason I say Slaven Bilic, and I know it was only for a season and a half or a couple of seasons, because I remember going to the games where he would play, and we were just about to kick off, and I would be in the stand, and he'd come up to the edge of the 18-yard line, and he'd turn round to Ludek, and he'd just put this big, massive thumb up at Ludo, and then, and Ludo would do it back, and it was just before kickoff, and it's just one of them little memorable things. It's not the reason for me. I'm not choosing him, by the way, but it's like little things that you remember. So I think that for me, both centre halves. So the first one for me would be Rio Ferdinand.
Yeah.
And when he started playing for us, he was a breath of fresh air, and filling the shoes of someone like Alvin Martin, that had played so many games for West Ham, had been like solid, good reader of the game, just everything about him, and then seeing this young version come into the game, and then he was brilliant, Rio.
He was.
Yeah, and it was a shame that he moved on, but things happened, and made their money with Leeds, and then Leeds made their money with Man United, and then that was it.
That's it. And that's unfortunately that's going to be, I think, the blueprint we're going to be having for a few years. Is that sort of they talk about this RB Leipzig model, and that's sort of, I think, how we can compete. But you're right, Rio just came in and he was just like, I'm again, one of those players who you think played longer for us than he did, because obviously we knew about him from the youth team. It'd be like Joe Cole, people like that. These guys will see him around another 10 years, and they actually were, because you knew about them from an early age. And he's and he's one of those players. Rio's one of those players I always think as a West Ham boy, and it's like with like all the others, I don't know, Kute from he's at Palace now, and all these players who come and go. Some of them I just still think is West Ham. Obviously, Joe I always thinks is a West Ham boy, and Rio I always just see, doesn't matter what shirt he's playing in, what team he was playing in, whether he's on BT or Peter Crouch's thing. Always see him as a West Ham boy. I just do. And even when I interviewed Anton, that sort of really. That really got me even more so, because clearly Anton is a huge West Ham fan, and you'd like to think so is his brother. But
looking up to his big brother, I know.
Yeah, exactly. So Rio's in. Yeah, good. Who's going to be the other one? Who's the other one?
So again, it's like the start. At the sort of start of. I mean, Alvin finished at 96. So I managed to see however many. Years of his last part of his career, and he was just, again, he was solid, wasn't he? He's like nearly 600 appearances, and it's like, I mean, he was just fantastic, as a centre half, and he'd done what it said on the tin, and he was, good reader of the game, solid. I know he was old school, but you could then see him in Rio, and
definitely.
Yeah, brilliant. So those two for me were centre halves for me.
Yeah, good shout. They're nice and solid. Right, okay, Alvin and Rio. Okay, let's move into midfield then. So you've done your defence, you've done your goalkeeper. Let's just relax. It's like you've made your choices. Now you got to deal with them now. Right, so let's go into midfield. Let's go left midfield.
Right. So bloody hell, this was hard as well. Actually, they're all hard, honestly.
They are.
Again, I've seen some players over the years, so from the last little bits, a few years for Alan Devonshire,
Yeah, you got the tail end of him,
I mean, unbelievable. And I only recently read, and I didn't know this, but he'd managed Brentford women like in 1995, and I didn't know that, and I didn't realise that. So that's something I never knew.
He's from around there, isn't he? He's from around there,
So Devonshire. There was Kevin Keane in the mix for me as well that I saw, and then a couple of them like Stan Lazaridis. I loved him. And Matty Everington, and then
similar players, weren't they? Hit Laser and
But I mean, although Matty played like quite a lot of years and he was a good player, I've been sneaky and sort of put another player that played across the middle because I've had to fit him in, and that was Pyatt.
Yeah.
So I've when he played out on the wing, he'd cut in and he'd go again and then get a shot off. I love that. From that left side, I love that. I know he did it from all across the midfield, and I know that he only had, under 50 appearances, but what he did in the time that he was with us was amazing, and I was sorry to see him go.
Yeah, I think everyone was,
But he was
right. You're totally right. 50 appearances, but exponentially. That's a long word. Come on, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Exponentially. I'll use it again now. Just got to make sure it means what I mean it to say. But it seemed a lot more than 50 games because of the significance of what he did and the significance of being in that last season at the Bowling and those goals and Crystal Palace free kicks and Man United free kicks and when he played Blackburn away, and he just seemed to just be around. We've had other players who played 50 games who people have forgotten about. Where Pyatt played 50 games and 50 and you seemed I could easily it's bizarre he didn't play that many games but made such an impact on the players, on the actual fans, and he appears in loads of people's 11s despite the fact he played Alvin played 600 odd games, something like that, and it's funny just how much impact people have on players.
But when they're a special kind of player, and you get
he was so special,
and the likes of Tevez, he was special for us as well, and didn't play a lot of games for us, wasn't with us an awfully long time, but still he had that the special side, and when you find special players, totally they're stuck in your mind then, aren't they?
You're totally right, and it's one of those things where to be fair, from when you started watching them and me, I was sort of early 90s, we were not starved, but we didn't have the Brookings, we didn't have the Peters, we didn't have the Hursts, the Moores. You were lucky enough to see Dev. I didn't see Dev play, or almost Cotty in his second spell, but we never really had those types of players. We had John Moncurs and Ian Bishops, and these were fantastic players. But we never had the upper echelons of. Again, I must have swallowed a dictionary for lunch, I think. But the upper echelons of these sort of Pyatts, and Pyatt was one of those players who, all your mates who were not West Ham fans wanted in their team. And I've never had that. That's not me. That's we're West Ham. We have Martin Allen and Pete Butler, and he was just such a special player that they were shitting themselves when we played West Ham, and it was amazing. It was a privilege to watch such a good player.
Yeah.
And he fucked off and did all that. But and you get that with those mercurial players though. Those players, who are on the edge all the time. If he doesn't get what he wants, he threw his toys in the pram. And Arnautovic was the same. He didn't get what he wanted for his toys in the pram.
And again, he's another one that he warmed to every West Ham fan's heart. And he changed his attitude and his work rate, and he got so much better, and everyone loved him, and then he dumped us, and then you think, why do that? You've just got an absolute fan base on your carrying you, and you go and do that,
You're right. But he could have been a legend. I think Arnautovic could have been a legend at West Ham. He had all the parts. He had the skill. You look at someone like Di Canio or people like that. They had the skill. He had the skill, but he had the passion. I mean, Pyatt had the skill. He was technically the best player I've ever seen. Pyatt was, but he didn't have the passion. He didn't have the strength. He didn't. He wouldn't put it about. Where he's a typical sort of French-based player. It's like when we always used to play Arsenal and like Fabregas and stuff. You'd kick them up the bum, and they'd be petulant and go, and that was him. But Arnie was the guy. He was a bastard, but he was he was a bastard, but he was our bastard, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And every other club hated him, but the team he played for, he loved. And yeah, it was a shame. But you get those players. You get that sort of, that's that side. But anyway, we'll put Pyatt in.
Yeah.
I love these shows because I just go, all right, just go around the houses.
No, but yeah, you do, because there's so many.
And it's true. And it's true, and but at least with the 11, you get some sort of like, now we've got we've done Pyatt, now we can go to the next player, and so you at least sort of have some sort of path.
Yeah.
So we'll go to right wing. Let's go to the right midfield. Who are we going for the right midfield?
Oh God, thank God, there was only 3 that I could actually.
Only 3, thank God.
But I don't know why, and I struggled with this because I thought.
Right, let me guess them.
Why am I not reminded?
They're going to be Laurent Courtois. If you put him in, no. Laurent Courtois. I've bugged myself up now trying to think of 3 really funny right wings. But anyway, I forgot about Laurent Courtois. I don't know where that came from.
I struggled with these, but again, in my era, starting with the most earliest, I loved Mark Ward. I thought that he was fantastic.
Yeah.
And again, he's like 160 odd appearances for us. I didn't actually know whether or not. Now, Joe Cole, essentially a midfielder that would play on the right, would play in the middle sometimes.
Yeah, but like Pyatt, wouldn't it?
And he was versatile across that middle. But so I had the choice of Joe Cole out there as well, just to throw him in there because I was only having 2 otherwise. But I went with Mr. Sinclair. He had to be the one. He had to be. He was just fantastic. Everything about him. He was great.
No,
the fitness, the speed, the deliveries. Just a real nice guy. Passion. I know everyone talks about the cross the Canio and whatever, but it wouldn't have mattered who crossed that. He still would have executed it and scored. But Trevor Sinclair, brilliant player. Yeah.
No, you're right. Totally.
Had some goals as well.
Yeah, I mean, he never scored a tap in, if I remember. Every goal I remember him scoring was like a volley or he never scored like an easy 3-yard tap in. I'm sure he did, but I can't remember any. And versatile. Sort of that player you need in your team. I think he started up front with us. He scored at Everton. Against Everton, a couple of goals in his debut. I think he played right wing back for a bit under Harry. Sort of a bit like Antonio, really. Now, sort of doing all this, sort of like all over the place, and now he's sort of stuck to a position. But you need that. You need that versatility. And a good player, and a good player can play in any position. And so they can adapt their game to it. And he was that. I mean, he was brilliant. I loved Trevor Sinclair.
Yeah.
And also, I like players or former players who interact with fans on Twitter and stuff like that. And obviously, you on Twitter, so Trev does it all the time, and so the ambition people, and it makes a big, I love Bish. He's like, I love him. He's like one of my dream players. But with someone like Trevor Sinclair as well, it's like a like or a follow is like the new autograph.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, Trevor Sinclair follows me.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool. You know what I mean? It's like always liked my post, and it's the same with, and nowadays autographs. I think you can't see anyone to do an autograph. Unless you've got a 2 meter pen. It's not going to work. So it's I think it's great. Honestly, I think Trevor Sinclair is a lovely bloke, and
fantastic.
He was a fantastic player, and he was another one, who resurrected his career at West Ham. He was on the downward at QPR, came to West Ham, he got back in the England squad, World Cup squad, and then he buggered off. That's just the way, did it to Pyatt. Pyatt was like, no one had heard of him till he joined us, and put him on the world stage, and then he buggered off, and it tends to be a thing with West Ham. It tends to be a theme. Right, central midfield. Right. Now it's going to be a tough one, I reckon, for you.
It was, and there was a good. I mean, taking Declan out of the equation because I could say him totally, just him alone. But I've gone with clearly Mr. West Ham, Mark Noble. That's just an out and out for me. the servant that he is, how he's grown in just every way. He's never been the finished article. He's always developed.
That's a good point.
Over the years, do you know? And he's got better and better and better. And yes, I know. You know, fans will go, "Oh, well, he's lost his legs." Yeah, I know. I get that. Well, that's what happens when we get older. You know, but however, he looks after himself. He's still fit. He went through a stage with all of the problems with his abdomen and the injuries that he was still playing through and taking painkillers. That's what a real captain does. You know, they bear with that pain and they play through it and, you know, smile through gritted teeth and you get on with it and then you get repaired and then you go again, you know, and that's what a good professional will do. And that's what he is. He's just an out and out proper captain. And and I love him for that. He's my main one. So
I know what you mean. And you're right. He has this. It's weird. Yeah, just think about it now. He sort of regenerated him. He's like Doctor Who. He regenerates himself every season, doesn't he? Now he's in this sort of weird number 10 role, which just seems to be working. It's like 3 years ago, I never put him as a number 10.
I was really scared of that. You know, that the last game, and it was like, oh my God, why is he going so high? What's he doing up there? You know, and it's like, what is he doing? Get back. You're just not used to seeing that, you know.
It's not. And it's nice to see that he has the confidence in Rice and Souček to do that. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, 'cause it's almost like he's tried to carry the team on his back, on his shoulders for too long. And you know, with Declan particularly, and now with Souček, there's two guys there who could easily hold that midfield. And we know next season that's going to be two of the three, and then the third will crop in as and when. So it could be Mark if you want a bit more steel. If you want a bit more flair, then you could put in Lanzini or another. And people like Snodgrass, you know, I miss Snoddy. I've missed Snoddy. Like I love Snoddy, and I've missed him since he's been a bit. And that's what we need, that bit of grit sometimes.
I know, and he is. And then at the same time, there'll be other fans saying, "Oh no, he's not," you know. But look, I mean, when he's on his day, Snoddy, he's fantastic, you know. And he has got that passion and the desire and grit, and he loves it, and he loves the stage, you know, when everything's going well, you know. But it's keeping him up there, isn't it?
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. I mean, I'm not being funny. You know, Pellegrini kept him. Picked him instead of £40 million worth of players. You know, and he there was a time at the beginning of the season after about the first half dozen games where he was the informed player in the league. You know, Robert Snodgrass, 31-year-old who we'd sent out on loan to Villa in the Championship, is now That's what I mean. It's just like, and that's what I love about West Ham.
Yeah.
You know, a player will just hit a vein of form, and it's brilliant. And it's nice to see because he was like, as you said, anything he could do, he was just turning it on. Right. Anyway, Nobes is in. Yeah. Who is the other midfielder?
Right. So, and I know there was a few. I know Scotty Parker was with us for a good amount of time. Steve Lomas was another one that I
That's
saw.
A great shout.
Back in the day, and he gave us nearly 200 appearances, just under. Frank Lampard, obviously, right in the mid-90s, again, good midfielder, but I've gone with my early days again, and one of your favourites, you'll like this now, so Ian Bishop.
Oh, Bish Bosh.
Yeah,
we're getting a retweet.
I know.
Bish is in it.
I loved him. I did. I loved Ian Bishop, and he was like 255 appearances, and he gave his time to us, and he loves West Ham. And I know there's a whole link with Man City and everything else, but he was brilliant, and the days of him and Trevor Morley, it was just like that was fantastic. I loved going to the games and seeing him ping one from outside the box, he's my other one. So and that was for the reasons that I remember when I'd go, as a youngster, so Mark and Ian in the middle, and I know there's others.
Of course, there's others. That's the thing. There's
loads of others.
hundreds. There's
Yeah.
hundreds. I mean, Fulham just scored.
Oh,
50.
okay.
First half of extra time. This is going to be like old hat by the time it goes up because everyone would have seen it.
Yeah.
I don't care. But yeah, I mean, someone like Ian Bishop is a classic example. I mean, there was a time when I interviewed, I've obviously interviewed him, interviewed Monks as well, and him and Monk, and he said when him and Bishop were playing, there was a period 2-3 seasons when they would take on any midfielder. If it was Keane or Vieira and Petit,
I was going to say.
and we'd have a go at them. And
Yeah.
not being funny, they're both skinny boys, It's not like they were like built like Vieira and but he's shit houses, But we'd take him on and we'd have a go. And you think you fucking hell, yeah, fair play. But you know what I mean? It's ambitious again. How he never played for England. He was such a classy player, and he's just like England were crying out for that classy player. We never had it, but right, we'll put Bish in.
Yeah.
Bish Bosh is in. Good friend of the show. He'll be retweeting it. Nice.
Yeah, good.
Well done, Claire. Right, okay. He's going up front. Who we got as strikers?
Right. I will give you my first one, which is early days again. Right. So I already mentioned, Trevor Morley, and I struggled with John Hartson was another shout that I could have gone with, and I loved him. He's fantastic. But early days was that I managed to see, and in 2 phases, obviously. And that was Tony Cottee.
TC,
and that was back in the day when you actually could, like you said earlier, you could get a signature, And I remember like being so young, and and waiting either with my brother or as I got into secondary school, and with my friends from school, and I'd wait outside through the railings, autograph book, which I've still got in the loft somewhere in the memorabilia boxes. But and I'd have my autograph. But I'd go after every single game at Upton Park, and I would stand there and I'd get him to sign it again, and all the other players as well. So so TC was one of mine. And then the last one would be for me just another special player that comes around every now and then, and that was Paolo Di Canio. It's just fantastic what he did at West Ham, the appearances, the goal average, which was like almost one in every other game. So it was something nearly one in every other game. 47 goals, 118 games. I mean, that's just unreal what he could do.
And again, a play like that, 180, Paolo, the impact he had in the team. You think he'd have played 200-300 games for us? Do you know what I mean? Just because he's so revered by people, and he had, and again, we talk about play. We mentioned Payet, and we said, Payet and the way he left us, but the way he joined us was very similar to the way he left us. And we have a habit of doing this. I mean, we've only signed Paolo Di Canio because he pushed the referee over. People forget about that.
No, that's funny.
But that's part of the story, isn't it? And obviously, then we famously had, with Razor and Righty, when they did then we signed them, and that's what I love about Paolo. I just think there's not many, there's a few. We mentioned Tevez, he's another one, who are foreign-based players who come over and just get West Ham, and West Ham get them because they've got the passion, and they've got the skill, and they've got the temperament, and they've got the love. I mean, he's got a West Ham tattoo, and I respect anyone who gets a tattoo because I can't be scared of needles more than anything, but, I just think he's brilliant, and the stories, we've done a lot of these interviews. Obviously, Paolo's come up in a lot of them, but everyone's had a personal story about him, and some of them are brilliant. So
Jack Hislop's one was funny, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Something about the legs or something, and he was talking to his legs or something like that.
He was talking to his legs, and that's what he does.
But it's true. It's the psychology thing, and And it is, and every player's different, and how they prepare for games, and how they, some don't want to be spoken to. No. Some want to have the banter and everything going on. Some just want to sort of be with themselves, and that's it. And that's how they deal with things, and that's how they prepare. But then you'd think he's so passionate in everything that he does, in the way he played, his celebrations, he wasn't arrogant. He was passionate, rather than the arrogance, in the celebration. Some of them, when you'd see him and he'd go off and he'd be like, it wasn't because, it's because he appreciates himself and how good he is, or how good he was.
He was at the top of his game. He was at the top of his game. Yeah. And that's why I love those idiom. I can't pronounce any words now, but that's why, like, those little things you find out. Like, for example, where you had, that Arsenal game when he made the 2 Premier League's informed defenders and goalkeeper look like they were playing the Sunday League. Yep. He had his shorts on backwards because Arsenal was like, and that's what I love. That's the story. We interviewed a guy the other day, and he was interviewing Paolo. It was Mick Clifford, actually. He was interviewing Paolo for the Scandinavian Hammers. And he wasn't, and he phoned up Harry, and Harry said, no, he's not playing. It's a cup game. Go to the training ground and you can have the interview there. That's how easy it was to get interviewed in the days. Like, I could do that. I've got to get Paolo and just phone, make one call. I'll call him now and get Paolo. But yeah, he was in Chadwell Heath, and Mick was in the car. It was pissing down with rain, and all we could hear was the Paolo Di Canio song. Someone was singing it. Yeah. And for about 20 minutes, he could hear it. And he had no idea what he thought. He was on the kit man or whatever. Yeah. 20 minutes time. This is torrential rain. Paolo walks out in flip-flops and a towel, singing his own song.
His own song. Oh God.
And then Mick shouts out, "Paolo, we've got an interview." Oh yeah, better get changed. He again goes back in, puts a tracksuit on, comes in, sits in the car for an hour and a half talking about his whole life, about his kids, about asking Mick about how much money he earns as his job. And it's just there's so many of these stories. I'm surprised there isn't a book about him yet. Like a proper, like, I mean, it's only his autobiography, but there's definitely a book in all these. We've had 130 odd guests. Paolo's appeared, and everyone's got a little story. Nicky Hawkins at West Ham Fan TV talks about when he interviews him, and for one of those sort of, as you said, those sort of pre-match event things where they get a player on, and he turns up all dressed to the nines. Paolo does. You can imagine. Bronzed and all in,
Italian suit.
Gucci, top to bottom. He went, "Paolo, you look incredible," and he just went, "I always dress up for my family." Done. That's a mic drop moment. It's like you can't say anything more than that.
I know.
And he's just, for me, Payet was the best player technically I've ever seen West Ham. He's on my 11, but Di Canio was the best player I've ever seen because you've got the technicality, but you've got the passion, and he had this sort of, he was like a Venn diagram, and I love him, love him, man.
Same.
Love him, but it's and that's it. That's the 11. See, it wasn't too painful. We've been chatting for an hour. We probably don't even realise we've been chatting for an hour.
It's not too painful, and it is across a few, a couple of different decades. But then, there are some special players on there.
There are, and we've been very fortunate enough to, even had quite a few of these special players, play at West Ham, and it's nice, and you mentioned some of the other ones, and people like Lomas and stuff like that, and they all get a chance, they all get a mention in the channel, and I think that's really important because people will always pick Paolo and Dixie, but too right. But it's those, as you said, when you're talking about notable mentions, honourable mentions rather. And that's what it's all about. I remember chatting to someone, I can't remember what it was like right back, and we were talking about Mark Vivian Foe, and that started the conversation of, he was the blueprint for that sort of Yaya Toure, Vieira, sort of big athletic sort of central midfield. and then we went, and then the segue to talking about Big Sam, because that's what he did. He brought in all these players, and then we started talking about Papa Bouba Diop and Abdoulaye Faye, and it's like, and Diarmi, you know.
Diarmi. Oh, yeah.
Mo Diarmi.
Yeah, loved him.
I loved him as well.
Yeah, brilliant.
And then obviously, you know, that's the whole fun of these channels, and people, it's all nostalgic, and you know, the time where, you know, everyone moans about what's happening in the current state of football and stuff like that. It gives everyone an hour back to just think about, you know, the journey we've come on, and you know, Christ, we could not have a football club.
No,
you know,
I know, and no one's right, and you know, and no one's 11 is the perfect 11.
No one's it's an opinion-based thing. Everyone's is slightly different. As you said, you've listened to other people, and you know, there might be 9 of the same people, but also
Shaka made me laugh picking himself.
But then I'm not being funny. It's like, you know, I interviewed people like John Pansel, and I said, John, you're going to put yourself, and he went, yeah, I need to bring my appearance fee up. You know, and it's like, well, fair enough. You know, if you're, you know, it's like, you know, I've interviewed other people like Kenny Brown and stuff like that, who haven't obviously picked themselves. But yeah, you know, people like Macca and TC, and obviously Tony Gow picked himself as manager, first team coach, captain, free kick and penalty taker. You know, and but everyone has a giggle with it. You know, Dev picked himself, and that's what I like. I just think, you know, people, and what's interesting when you talk to the players over the fans, certain players crop up in the players 11 that don't pick up in the fans. So, for example, Peter Butler. Peter Butler is in almost all of those, like Mad Dog. I think it was in Kevin Keane's.
Yeah,
it was in it was in all of their 11s.
Yeah.
And he hasn't appeared in many, if any, fans 11s. Someone like Hayden Mullins in the modern era, he's appeared in. I think Anton. I think Luke Chadwick put him in right back just to get him in the team. And again, it's funny how you see. It's like when you watch it. I mean, it must be the same with you. If I watched a football game with you, being a football player, you view the game very differently to the average fan. It just it always does. It always happens like that, and that's what's quite interesting. Exactly.
Analysing everything before it's, you know, God, putting yourself in someone else's position, and just, you know, God,
and you would do naturally, wouldn't you? But Claire, mate, it's been lovely chatting to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you brilliant. So much as well.
And obviously, thank you to everyone for listening and watching. You know, like, share, subscribe, all the usual stuff. And until next time, for me and Claire, take care. Come on, you Irons. You have to do it, don't you? It's like the Macarena or something like that, isn't it? Someone does it, and everyone says, come on, you Irons. We'll see. Or the Wigfield dance. I was teaching my daughter the Wigfield dance. You know, you've got TikTok nowadays. I was like, TikTok? We were doing TikTok dances well before you. She was like, what? And then me and my wife did the Wigfield Saturday night dance. And we remember it like that. It was mental. Anyway, on that rather random note, there we go, mention to Wigfield. You know, it's all good. For me and Claire, take care, everyone. Stay safe, and we'll see you again very, very soon. See you, everybody.